When you think of Formula One, this circuit is one of the first things to come to mind. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Aero League Racing Tier 3. My name is Aman, and you all join me today for the Belgian Grand Prix. Established in 1925, the Belgian Grand Prix has cemented itself as one of the many jewels in the F1 calendar, and for good reason. A clockwise track that spans 4.35 miles with tons of elevation changes. 2 DRS zones and 19 corners make up the circuit, with 9 of those to the right and the remaining 10 to the left. This track is great for fans as the average lap speeds hover around a whopping 145 miles an hour.
Most of the drivers have now entered back into the pits, and their runs have elapsed. They won't be making any more improvements on this current moment. Pointers, on the other hand, roughly 3/10 up, will definitely be promoting up a few positions, assuming he can keep it clean. Comes through the bus stop chicane and the final corner of qualifying. Keeps it relatively clean. Did lose the rear just a little bit over there, but manages to set a 144.6 and promotes himself up into P7. And Tichy, out of nowhere, sets a 144.3, roughly, oh my, only 4 thousandths behind MBMA, and goes P3. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, your final runs here in qualifying are over. CRF manages to grab provisional pole position with a 143.5. MBMA sits in P2 with a 144.3. Tichy, out of nowhere, manages to get a 144.3 and promotes himself up into P3. Trems in P4 and Pasty in P5. CRF obviously finding himself mighty comfortable. Arctic Squirrel has now come into his final grid position. And as we wait for the lights, we're all set to get underway here at Spa. Drivers revving their engines. We have 3 red lights, 4, 5 red lights. It's lights out and away we go here at Spa. CRF seems to get a very, very slow start. However, he does manage to keep the position to MBMA, who does get overtaken by Trems. We can see that there's almost 3 wide going into this corner. Turn 1, Pasty comes out ahead. Groen managing to promote himself up into P4. Trems dropping down massively and going all the way down into P14. Looking up the grid, we have a bunch of drivers attempting to go side by side through Eau Rouge, one of them being the between the Williams and the Mercedes. However, the Williams decides to back off, and because of that late braking, does manage to break the front wing. And we have a DNF in the form of MBMA, and there is a virtual safety car here in turn 1. How much longer now before the safety car ends and VSC ends? And as I say that, it has ended. Drivers are now back to racing speeds. We can see Vitor going side by side with O'Leary. Does manage to get the move done before the end of the straight. However, O'Leary will be tucking right back into the slipstream of the AlphaTauri up ahead. As we look up the grid, we can see Vitor Groen closing in on the driver ahead of him, Pasty. O'Leary getting sandwiched at this current moment. Noof managing to make the move on Parker. And CRF sets the fastest time of this race, obviously that being because it is the first lap of this race. Mini now roughly going side by side with the Red Bull, does manage trying to get the move done, goes around the outside, as a result has to go a bit off track there. However, he does get the move done and promotes himself up into P4. And now we have a Ferrari Haas system going down all the way from P1 to P4. So only in a span of a few laps, Major has dropped down quite a few number of positions, and Major has completely spun it! Major lost his car and drives straight into the wall and breaks his front wing. It does not look like he's DNF'd, however, that will be heartbreaking for Major. And you shouldn't be resetting the track, but that is what he's done. And CRF is now DNF'd! And CRF, your race leader, has also DNF'd, and with that, we have the first safety car of this race. What happened there? We were paying attention to the Red Bull of Major, who spun out first, and then when I look at the top of my screen, CRF has completely DNF'd. Your race leader, who qualified roughly a second above the rest of the grid, has now officially DNF'd from this race, and a bunch of drivers now coming into the pits. So Groen coming into the pits, Mini coming into the pits, Vitor opting to stay out along with Pasty. Oh, sorry, Mini deciding to stay out. Pasty and Groen both deciding to come into the pits. And after that chaotic safety car restart, Mighty Chump managed to spin out. Arctic managed to spin out. And Mini actually opting to go into the pits. So Mini on his 6-lap-old mediums has decided enough's enough, and Groen also opting to go into the pits. So that soft compound jump that he made was definitely the wrong call to make. Pasty also opting to go into the pits with his 2-lap-old hards. So I'm not too sure what the decision is over there. We can see O'Leary, who had his 3-lap-old hards, decides to stay out and is now your race leader. Tichy coming out right behind him with his 3-lap-old hards, also sitting in P2, and Mini, who comes out of the pits side by side with the Williams, actually manages to keep the position and stays in P3. And as we cross Sector 2, Race Control has now given us the update for the second time that the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap. O'Leary leads the rest of the grid. Currently on his 4-lap-old hards, Tichy sitting right behind him with his 4-lap-old hards, Mini with his 1-lap-old hards. We'll ride on board with O'Leary to see when he decides to go. It will be up to him to bunch up the rest of the grid. We'll keep an eye on the back of him as well to see how Tichy fares when O'Leary conducts his restart. So O'Leary obviously coming through the bus stop chicane, hasn't decided to go just as yet. Comes to the final corner and now finally decides to go. Does catch Tichy slightly off guard. We can see Mini right behind the Aston Martin of Tichy. No moves down into turn 1 just as yet. We can see Vitor following closely behind Pointers. Groen following closely behind Vitor. And Vitor managing to make a dive on Pointers, who seemed to have braked a lot later than he would have hoped. So that promotes Vitor up into P4. Looking down the rest of the grid, no sudden overtakes just as yet. No drivers deciding to go side by side through Eau Rouge this time around. And we've had a relatively clean safety car restart, and now Groen all of a sudden getting very interested in the Williams of Pointers, dives down the inside. However, Pointers completely backed out of that move, and Groen now promotes himself up into P5. We can see a yellow flag involving Noof Squid, who has spun out. Will that cause another safety car? It does not look to be the case. Noof is on the move. And we are back underway here at Spa. Oh, is there another yellow flag? And we can see Parker has gone off completely off the track. Maybe got involved in some sort of incident there. Hasn't DNF'd as yet. But going back up the grid, Tichy roughly a 10th behind O'Leary. Trying to go side by side with the drivers ahead of him. We can see Mini getting very, very involved in this occasion. This is currently sitting P3. Will Tichy dive down the inside once again? No, he will not. Actually opting to go around the outside, but that opens up the door for Mini, who is now side by side with the Aston Martin. Mini trying to get the switchback around. However, that allows Vitor to do so on him. And Groen has completely spun out, but that allows Mini to recombat into this turn. So going down into turn 1, Mini trying to get back into P3. Vitor fighting around the outside of the Haas, keeping himself up into this battle. We can see Tichy manages to keep P2. Haas and the AlphaTauri going side by side with each other. Vitor decides to back out of the move going into Eau Rouge, and that lets Mini stay in P3 at this current stage. So the battle for first position is definitely on. We have another yellow flag through Sector 2, and that is Arctic Squirrel, and Parker has actually DNF'd from the session. And that brings out the third safety car of this race, lap 12 of 22. Oh, wow. So lap 12 of 22 here at Spa, we have had our third safety car, actually one VSC, 3 safety cars. And this gives us a chance to review the current standings in this race. So O'Leary still managing to hold on into first position. Tichy and Mini all staying in their current positions as well. Vitor in P4, Pointers in P5, Pasty in P6, Luke in P7, Groen, who was fighting for a podium slot, has now dropped down into P8, Major in P9, and Trems in P10. Now with DRS finally enabled once again, we can see Mini heading down Eau Rouge, catching the Red Bull up ahead. DRS will definitely assist him on this occasion. Vitor now picks up a 3-second time penalty. DRS wide open, and that allows Mini to go side by side with the Red Bull. Red Bull using every bit of battery it has. However, it's not enough, and Mini finally, after a bunch of laps, now finally manages to promote himself up into P1. Groen manages to promote himself up into P6, getting past Pointers. And we can see Pasty getting getting all out of shape there. Trying to follow very closely behind the Williams of Pointers. However, Dirty Air, obviously, as we saw with MBMA, is a big influence around this track. We once again see a massive train forming, and as I say that, Tichy actually going side by side with O'Leary down the long straight heading towards the bus stop chicane. Can't make a move around the outside, so he sticks himself back into the slipstream once again. We can see Vitor thought for a second to get involved in this incident, decides better off it. However, he dives down the inside of the Aston Martin and actually manages to make the move on the Aston Martin, promotes himself up into P3. That little battle there compromised Tichy just a little bit, and we can see Trems now getting involved with the Aston Martin. Will he make the move down the inside? Yes, he will. Tichy fighting this position back with every ounce of strength he has. However, it's not enough, and Trems now gets promoted up into P4. We can see Vitor very closely behind, following O'Leary as they go through Eau Rouge, and DRS opens up once again. We will have to see if those tires of O'Leary will be able to hold back Vitor just enough. It doesn't seem to be the case. They are side by side heading into the turn, and Vitor with the inside line manages to promote himself up a position. Groen managing to get past Tichy and now pushes himself up into P5. Tichy, on the other hand, following once again very closely behind the Ferrari of Groen, who goes extremely wide into that corner, and that allows Tichy to go right side by side with him. There's a bunch of wheel banging between the drivers, as a matter of fact. Tichy trying to stick around the outside. They're still side by side through this long right-hander. Tichy goes off track but still manages to keep the position and promotes himself up into P5. Groen will most definitely be looking to report that in that battle between the two drivers. And now Groen not giving up on this fight just as yet, tucking right behind the Aston Martin. Will he dive down the inside? Yes, he will. Dives down the inside of the Aston Martin. They once again come into contact with each other as there's a bunch of wheel banging going on. And once again, Groen manages to overtake the Aston Martin and pushes himself up into P5. However, will it be enough? DRS zone in the next few set of corners. Aston Martin right behind the Ferrari. DRS wide open. Drivers once again going side by side with each other. Tichy trying to get the move done before the turn, and he does. Tichy gets a nice run through Eau Rouge. We've been seeing him getting involved in a ton of battles with the Ferrari behind him, but now he's trying to change that up. Maybe going into a battle with the Red Bull. Dives down the inside. Will he make the move stick? Yes, he does. Tichy manages to promote himself up into P4. And now O'Leary comes into P5, who comes into a bit of contact with the Ferrari of Groen in the background there. Will Groen make a dive down the inside? Thinks about it. Maybe on this occasion. Yes, he does. He can see O'Leary goes quite wide there. There may have been a bit of contact between the drivers, and now Groen now manages to promote himself up into P5. Does go extremely wide on that occasion. And now Pointer's getting all of a sudden very involved with the Red Bull. No move done just as yet. Oh, Pointers actually spins out. On the final lap of the race, Pointer spins out and loses his car and breaks his front wing. Oh, that's heartbreaking for Pointers. Regardless, our attention goes towards the race winner here at Spa. Mini comes across the line and wins the Belgian Grand Prix. Trems, on the other hand, because of the penalty, actually manages to overtake Mini turns. And your actual race winner for this race will be Trems. Mini drops down into P2. Vitor finishes in P3. Tichy in P4, Groen in P5, Major in P6, O'Leary in P7, Admo will come across the line, finish in P8, Pointers comes across the line and finishes in P9, and Cunning Fern, I don't think has enough on this occasion to overtake Pointers, is a bit too far back on this occasion, and finishes in P10, and that will round off your top 10 here at Spa today. And what a chaotic race we've had. We've had 4 safety cars, we've had 1 VSC, and after all of that, your race winner here is Trems.